A little bit of technical difficulties. My apologies. Thanks so much for being here and tuning in to compel your audience. Have an interesting episode today. Super excited for you to be a part of it. Today we're going to talk about the stories, the strategic storytelling of microbreweries, craft beer, small batch bourbon, and what we're seeing, I think, on everybody's Instagram feed is a new apparel, hat, t-shirt, or accessory company that is popping up using a Shopify store. So let's talk a little bit about strategic storytelling first, and then we'll dive into the rest of it. Tell you some stories about some brands that I have uh, been a part of or partaken in or supported. So the power of strategic storytelling is that what we know is that every person is already speaking in story form. We The way we communicate almost about anything is that we're trying to give context. We're trying to weave a story out, probably in our favor or in the audience's favor. And then lastly, we are trying to influence our audience that this story is great. You should like it. You should be a part of it. So when you think about stories as a whole, not only do we communicate in stories, but we also consume information or think in stories. What's up, Jeff? Um, Anytime anyone ever is speaking to us, we consume that in story form. That story of whatever they told us might transport us to the past, might make us think about the future and some decisions that we need to make of buying a product, not buying a product, going somewhere, not going somewhere, spending time with someone, not spending time with someone, or it might make us think about the future. Do I want to do business with this person? Do I want to be aligned with this person to go accomplish a future? If your stories don't make me think, if your stories don't help me align with you, if your stories don't in some way help resolve a pain or a situation in my life, then you're not actually strategically telling your stories. Quite honestly, you're telling stories no matter what, they're just boring. They're not engaging. So I would say the number one person that reaches out to me on social media to want to pick my brain, ask me questions, is always this almost exact same question. Chris, can you help me with my story? And I find that is a really ambiguous question because are you asking me to help you with your life story? And most often it's not. No, I'm asking you to help me with the story that I'm going to tell. And I always tell them, you're already telling stories. You're asking me to help make your stories more strategic. So let's talk about what does that even look like? Well, in strategic storytelling, we take a story, we take a plot of a story, a core of a story, and we ask ourselves, how are we going to strategically tell this story? Now, we're not talking about manipulation. We're not talking about deceiving anyone. What we're talking about is that I want to make sure that when I tell this story to someone, that it casts a really great future, that it allows them to understand what the story I'm telling. I mean, salespeople have had issues with this forever. They go in, they give their feature, their function, their benefit, and the person says, I don't even know what you're talking about because they didn't give context. Or we give so much context, the person says, I already know all this. You don't really seem like an expert. I think we're going to move on to a different company. Oh, no, too much context. So when we tell stories, we have to tell them in a strategic way. We have to think about what is the beginning, what is the middle, what is the end? Who's the hero? What's the conflict? And how do I play guide and not play expert? And we all struggle with that. So whether you are a leader leading a team and you're telling your people a story, whether you're a salesperson and you're telling the prospect a story, whether you're, a customer success manager and you're telling the customer a story because you want to retain them, or whether you're just a parent and you're telling your kid a story, we are all telling stories all of the time. Some people are just better at telling them strategically because they haven't grown numb to some of the best stories that they have in their arsenal. So we also see that culture has a big, big, big piece in control over what type of stories that are being told by companies. So I'm just going to pull some products, talk a little bit about them. You probably, Jeff Underwood, if he's still here, he's going to love what I tell next. But Titleist. I used to always say that I wanted to be Titleist. I didn't want to be Pinnacle. I didn't want to be Top Flight because Those are the lower tier, cheaper golf course. So every golfer at one time wanted to play with a Titleist ball. They knew the Pro V1 was the top end ball. Now, some people would argue, now they would argue, but at a time, it was the top ball. People didn't see Callaway as the top ball. They didn't see Srixon as the top ball. They didn't see, any of these other brands out there as the best ball that was out there. It was Pro V1. How? Strategic storytelling. They strategically had the right golfers that were pros tell their story. They strategically had the top golf courses only sell Pro V1. They strategically priced their product at the top, which makes you feel like it's the gold standard. And those that were winning were playing with a Pro V1, which told a great story. So when you think about that, not only do we tell our own story as an organization, as a salesperson, as a customer success manager, as a leader, but we also have to know, are we telling a good enough story that others are telling that story for us? So in this case, Titleist was a cultural story. Everybody wanted the Pro V1. I'm going to play the Pro V1. Play the Pro V1. I think that story may have shifted a little bit. We now have a lot of other golf balls and golf companies that have kind of rose up the ranks that are competing. Companies you never thought would be a part of golf, such as like Under Armour, that have big sponsorships, et cetera, et cetera. Nike coming on, having their own golf equipment. So this is a perfect example of a brand that strategically was telling great stories that for the culture at that time, people were like, yes, I only play with the Titleist. And now when you find the older golfer, some of them are that way. I will only play. Why? Let's think about strategic storytelling. Titleist has done a phenomenal job. Jeff, comment what you play with. I'm curious if you play with the Titleist, man. But Titleist's done a great job to make you believe that you play better. You tell yourself the story. I play better when I play with a Titleist golf ball. And so let me take a look at these. You know what's even great is that this is actually a Titleist golf ball that I got from Bandon Dunes, Pacific Dunes. So Pacific Dunes, one of the top golf courses in the nation, is even a brand partner with Titleist. So when you think about those things, it's all about storytelling. Now, let's talk a little bit about microbreweries and small batch and what I call garage apparel companies. So let me just throw a few things up here, okay? So this is, I'm not an IPA guy, really. I know it's the trend and everybody's doing the IPAs. It's not me. I'm actually an amber or brown ale, Pro V1 in the winter, Pro V1X in the summer. Yeah, I love it. That's because Jeff's a great golfer. Another story for you all. If you're ever playing golf with Jeff Underwood, don't gamble. You're going to lose. I'm telling you right now. This is a beer from a company called Cigar City Brewing. They've been around since about 2009. And they make this beer called Ha Alai. I think I said that correctly. Hi Alai. I think is how you say it. It's an IPA. IPAs obviously culturally have grown a lot. Tons of people are drinking IPAs. I don't know if it's the hipster thing or what it is, but IPA, man, what's your next IPA? What are you drinking this? Oh, yeah, hazy IPA. I hear it all the time. Not an IPA guy. I kind of stay true to the beer scene. But why have microbreweries, why have these craft beers just blown up over the course of the last 15 years? I can tell you why. The number one reason why is because we as a culture, we want something that is exclusive, that's unique. We want to feel VIP. We want to feel like the very important person. So there are brands out there that I'm going to show you that have done a good job. Breweries are one of those. I'm not saying you're not a very important person if you drink Budweiser. Shout out my grandpa who absolutely drinks Bud and only Bud. But I think that when these brands grew, these microbreweries grew all over Pacific Northwest and whatnot, that was one of the ways that they were strategically storytelling to a lot of their people, was they were giving them an exclusive product that made them feel exclusive. Oh, have you had this? No, I haven't. Well, now they feel exclusive. Now they feel very important. Every single one. Hey, what's up, sis? My sister's here today. Every single one of us want to feel exclusive. So microbrewers has done that. Most recently, we've now seen a new trend. Athletic Brewing Company. This is a non-alcoholic, gluten-free beer. My grandpa is falling out of his recliner right now. Like, what are you drinking? But now we're seeing the trend towards, well, why can't beer drinkers not have a beer belly and be healthy? Why can't they come back from a run and drink? You guys might remember at one time, Michelob Ultra had this massive commercial campaign where people were working out, and they were getting it in so they could go have their 95 calorie Michelob Ultra, which, no offense, I think tastes like dirty water. But now we have Athletic Brewing Company. Why? Because it's giving us a picture of uniqueness, that you're a beer drinker, but you can be healthy while you're doing it. Now let's shift. Let's shift to something I love in bourbon. So you might have seen this bottle. I think the first time I ever saw this was House of Cards, first season. But this is Blanton's. It's hard to get Blanton's. Blanton's is an allocated bourbon now. It is a single barrel bourbon. It comes out of a single barrel. In fact, this, I can already tell you, this is from Rick number 34, barrel number 326, comes from Warehouse H, and it was dumped on 6/14/21. It was bottled by hand, 93 proof. Now tell me exclusivity. So now we're seeing in the bourbon market, even, we've moved from the beer, the microbreweries, that now we're going small batch. We're going bourbon. Now we're going things like E.H. Taylor, which literally says on there, small batch, which is a story. Exclusivity. Hey, you're the only one that can get, it's a small batch. Only a small amount of people are able to do this. If we shift one more time into the hat I have on here, Art of Homage, go check them out. Great stuff. If you're a believer in God, or you like things that are themed according to God or Christianity, this stuff is dynamite. I love the colors, everything he does. He's now putting shoes in, building full packages of clothing. But anyhow, so I got this hat from him. I bought it a long time ago. The thing's blown up. I've seen his growth. But you're now seeing all these apparel companies. Here's another one here, local in Texas. Heed the Call. It's got a monkey. It's called Heed the Call. So on and so forth. Now, why do I tell you all this stuff? Because we have to start looking at culture as a sense for what people are going through in order to strategically tell them the right story. So I want to give you 3 things that all of these companies are doing that we're just going to continue to see happen over and over and over, that you can use, whether you're a leader with people, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a customer success manager, or heck, whether you're just a parent, or whether you have anybody in your life you're trying to influence in a positive way. Number 1, these brands, they are telling a story that speaks to identity, especially identity in our culture. We all want to be one of a kind, unique, small batch, crafted, right? We want to be, that's me, and I've got this really powerful thing that only I do and nobody else does, and we tell ourselves that. If anyone ever watches this and they complain about we got entitled kids, you know why we have entitled kids? Because culture is making our kids and our young people and all of us a bit entitled. Anybody with a Wi-Fi password and a cell phone with minutes can now record themselves on TikTok every single day and get people that will watch them that's affirming their behavior. They're making them feel like what? You're one of a kind. You're unique the way you do it. So when we think about that, and I don't mean to talk about that in a negative way, what I mean to tell you is you need to be using strategic storytelling in a way that fits culture. If you know that your people feel like they're one of a kind, or they want to discover their uniqueness or they're one of a kind, you need to speak to that. You need to create your brand that way. You need to create your perspective that way. Let them know the things that you see in them and who they are that is unique to them. We are all snowflakes, even though snowflakes melt. We are snowflakes. We are unique. That doesn't mean that it means I'm lazy or I procrastinate or I don't have to do anything because I'm unique. But if you're in a position where you have influence over someone else, you need to highlight the things that are unique about them. Why? Because that's part of their story. We get this whole thing twisted when it comes to strategic storytelling. We want to run our mouth the whole time and tell you all the great stories, when in actuality, our story matters a whole lot less than our audience's story. So figure out their story, figure out their identity, figure out their culture, figure out their business, figure out who they are and what they're going through. Because once you do that, you're able to then speak the stories that you have for them into their world, their story, your story. Now let's build our story together. You're going to have so much more success. Number 2, these products, these companies that are out there, and we're seeing this, by the way, from the big box companies that are trying not to fall behind. We're seeing, if you look at marketing or advertising or the stories that your salespeople are telling you, they're trying to say, yeah, we know we're worth billions and trillions of dollars, but we got something just for you. And you can customize it the way you want. Ever wondered why we start customizing phones into the colors we want and the ways we want and the things we want in them and the things we don't? Well, customization equals just me. Customizing shoes, customizing your phone color, customizing your computer. Custom in your mind makes you think that you're the only one, that you're VIP. They fit into that identity culture. Number two, they're giving us something that gives us a sense of community. For instance, I drink Blantons, or I've got an allocated bottle of E.H. Taylor. That gives me exclusivity. Or as I found out here, my sister is drinking some Cigar City Brewing. I like their Maduro, which was their very first beer that they ever launched. Didn't know if it was going to work, and it blew up. So when you start drinking this, now I just built a connection with someone because they've drank it before. Oh, you have this? Oh, I like IPAs. Oh, I'm an IPA drinker. Their story, my story together. Cool. Now I can go and I can explore different maybe IPAs with that person. So don't think of it like I've got to like, hey, you went to college there. And no, that's not their story. Think about their story, what they're about, what they do. These brands are giving us community. They're giving us a belonging. So let's look at this from a business standpoint if I'm in sales. If I have a company that their goal is to become a Fortune 1000 company and they're not near that, then I need to position my product, if I truly believe it, as the thing they're missing to get to that goal. I have to give them a sense for, hey, everyone in our organization, community, they are Fortune 1000 customers. They are getting their funding. They are fill in the blanks. You need to help them see that your organization is a community, that you're inviting them to be a part of that. And that becoming a part of that gives them a sense of belonging, a sense of affirmation, and a sense of partnership instead of buy my product, be satisfied, leave. And that's what these brands are doing. There's a reason why we've seen memberships and rewards and VIP and exclusivity and these kind of things that are popping up everywhere. It's because it's a story to make you feel like, yeah, I'm the only one that has that. Number three, they offer us a future that we want, at least at this time in our lives. For instance, if I drink Blantons, it means I'm successful. If I play Titleist, it means I'm a good golfer. If I wear an Apple Watch, it means I care about my health, etc., etc., etc. If I wear brands that aren't big box brands, it means I'm not selling out. Now, if that's the future I desire, to be the small batch bourbon drinker, the craft beer drinker, the Titleist golf ball player, those kind of things, if that's the future I desire for my life, then really aren't I just throughout the chapters of my life choosing partnerships with brands and people to help me get to the future story? The answer is yes. The future story is the most important story. And in order to have people that will listen to you, people that you can influence and impact in their lives, people that will buy from you, people that will take your advice and actually go do something, people that you want to perform at a higher level than they've ever performed, or maybe sustain a high level they performed, you have to show them that you're as committed to their future story as they are. And in fact, in some cases, you may manifest or project a future story they never thought was possible, and that's why they listen to you. The power of strategic storytelling is endless. We see it in marketing. We see it in leadership. We see it in sales. We see it in relationships. We see it in parenting. But it doesn't become strategic until you decide to own it, to hone it, to be able to actually tell the stories that you believe do these three things. One, they speak to an identity. We think about culture and what they're going through. What's their story? Two, we give them a sense of community. Hey, this is my story. These are the people I work with. And then lastly, gives them a future story. This is our story together. What I love is, comment here in the chat, you're choosing to let other people's stories influence your own. Exactly. And that's very precious to us right now in society, because we only want to have the stories in that we want. We only want to let the people in that we want. And right now in culture, because we're seeing such a high level of potentially isolation, remote work, working from home, traveling back and forth, being an expert, being a consultant, because we see those things, we're building up even more walls. So you have to let them know, hey, I know your story. I want to hear your story. Tell me your story. Share your story that builds community and belonging. And then lastly, hey, let's build a great story together. If you will analyze your organization, the way you lead, if you'll analyze your product, your marketing, and most importantly, if you'll start thinking about your own life, because you've made decisions just like this. If you need help in strategic storytelling, it would be a bad business person to not say, come on, Craft and Compel. We will help you to strategically communicate using the power of storytelling. Or maybe we've recently launched crafted events. So if you have an event that you're like, I want to strategically story tell throughout my entire event, I want people to have a story that we impact, that builds partnerships, that builds business. That's the other avenue that we would love to help you at. Thanks so much for those that tuned in, for those that'll watch in the future. Remember, whoever tells the best story earns the attention of the audience. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.